All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here with us. My name is Nicole Knight, and I am, Assistant Director in the Duke Financial Aid Office. So here tonight to address a host of topics and things related to Duke-specific financial aid policies as they stand currently, and any questions you may have. So kind of protocol for tonight, I will be giving you the information, and as I do so, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box and limit them to the Q&A because we will not be able to address them in the chat. But we'll get to as many questions as we can as I am presenting. And at the end, we'll leave some time for just open Q&A to answer some questions live. So with that said, let's get started. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So I cannot see you all. I can just see my presentation. So if one of my colleagues come off mute to alert me to something, please do so. So here at Duke University, we have a commitment to provide need-based financial aid. So what does that mean? Basically, that means we have a need-blind policy for all domestic applicants. So your need for financial aid and your choice to check that box on the admission application for financial aid does not negatively impact your admission selection or decision. So again, domestic applicants, which includes U.S. citizens, permanent residents, so all of our green card holders, undocumented students, and those still under DACA are all considered the same for admission and the financial aid. We meet 100% of demonstrated financial need for these domestic groups, which means we are looking at income and assets to determine what we think you need to fill in any gaps between what it may cost to attend Duke and what we think your family can afford. So again, income and assets, as we like to say, are our bread and butter. They are the jelly, the jam, everything. On the admission application, you all will give wonderful stories about what you've done in your communities, what you've done in your schools, your academic achievements, and those are wonderful and amazing, and admissions loves to hear them. Unfortunately, my office cannot review that information, and it does not impact anything we are doing within the financial aid office. That said, there are some differences that are important to highlight. So again, our office is looking at the financial picture of your family, but we do have a host of other merit-based programs that are run through the Office of Scholars and Fellows. So that office is solely responsible for the merit selection here at Duke University. So all of those stories that I just mentioned, all of those achievements that I can't look at, this is the office looking at them. So they are doing so using your admission application only. So that is your one-stop shop for all merit considerations specific to Duke University. There's no supplemental application. There's no one you can call. There's no one to talk to. You are simply filling out your admission application to the best of your ability, providing any and all supplementals that you may like, and the Office of Scholars and Fellows will review that information, see that information, and make their finalist selections accordingly. So admissions, sees your applications, facilitates to the Office of Scholars and Fellows for merit consideration. Meanwhile, at the same time, our office independently is evaluating income and asset information to determine if need-based financial aid funding is applicable. So financial aid, kind of by the numbers. So we award approximately $134 million as need-based grant aid yearly. So that averages to about 52% of undergraduate students who don't pay the full cost to attend Duke University. 70% of our undergraduates actually graduate debt-free. So how do we accomplish this? We do have some hard numbers that kind of guide our policies that we can quote and that are on our website for all to see. So students with total family incomes under $60,000 do not have a parent contribution. Within that 60, those who actually fall below $40,000 have no loans in their aid offer, in addition to not being required or asked for parents to contribute. Okay, so something a few of you may be interested in, specifically related to our North and South Carolina students. We, as of last month, announced our new initiative that North Carolina and South Carolina residents with total household incomes of $150,000 or less can attend Duke tuition free. So without the use of loans, their grant funding at minimum will be the equivalent to tuition for that academic year. North and South Carolina residents with a total household income of $65,000 or less receive a tuition-free, fee-free housing meal grant, as well as additional support for books and course materials that will be refunded at the beginning of each semester. So one of the larger groups that is affected are active duty military members from either Carolina state and their children. So regardless of their permanent residency, if you are actually a permanent resident of either state or you are stationed in either state, this applies to you as well. Get back one. Okay, there we go. So a question we often get is, can I apply early decision / should I apply early decision? And ultimately that is up to every family to determine and decide. We do have some guidelines to help you make that decision so that it is the right one for your family and for your students. So unfortunately, we can't give you any information up front related to your income and asset information. We can't review it. We can't give a pre-estimate, nothing of that sort until your admission decision has been made and we're doing our process in late November. So you guys have to make these decisions very early for ED. So our guidelines are as such. If you are within a divorced family, separated family, so multiple households, you have foreign income, business income, the calculator we offer is not going to be applicable, is not going to be as applicable or useful for you. But if you don't fall into those categories, our main resource is what we call the net price calculator. So it's on our website and it utilizes all of the categories that we as counselors are reviewing and looking at when we take in your information. It's just you putting it in for yourself to estimate what Duke would say based on those entries. So if you're comfortable with what that calculator projects, then applying early decision sounds like a reasonable move for your students, and by all means go for it. If you're not as comfortable, again, we can't go through it with you. We can't tell you or give you any context of errors that may be within the calculator or reviewing your taxes to assure that you put the right numbers in. We can't do any of that. So if the calculator estimate is not something you're comfortable with, then again, that's for your family to make that ultimate decision. Do you still pursue early decision? Technically, applying early decision means that you're foregoing financial aid offers and estimates from other schools. So if that is in fact the case, then you won't have that advantage of comparing aid offers from other universities through the regular decision process. So if that's important to you or you want to be able to do that, then potentially regular decision would be a better pool versus that early binding commitment. So that said, if you make a good faith effort to work with our financial support office, and we've gone through the numbers, we've given you the scenarios, and we've given you that realistic picture for 4 years of what you would be committing to, and it's just not going to be feasible, it's not sufficient, we understand. You can be released from that early decision agreement accordingly to proceed and do complete other processes elsewhere in a timely fashion, because we know you're bumping up against those regular decision timelines at that point. So having those conversations with their office as soon as you get your aid offer, knowing ahead of time what things are coming down the line for your family. Is that something Duke can use? Is that something that will impact me negatively or positively? Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it so that you can make that call as soon as possible, regardless of your pool, but definitely if your early decision. Okay. So what if you're an international student? So this presentation, again, is geared toward the category of domestic applicants. So for our internationals, meaning they do not have a green card, they're not US citizens, that process is slightly different. So I will address that here. When you apply for need-based aid as an international applicant, it affects the decision. So there are two separate pools: those who apply internationally without any financial aid interest, and then those who do check that box because they are interested in aid. So checking that box will decide or determine what pool you are in. Therefore, we consider it need aware because we've isolated those applying for need-based aid. So if you do check that box, you can apply for aid at any time. If you don't, and you are admitted to Duke University, you cannot change your mind at any time unless you become a permanent resident at some point during your 4 years. So I stress and I highlight that if you are international, deciding whether or not to apply for financial aid is a first step. Because if you are admitted without checking the box, we can't go back in time and you can't check it later, regardless of what may happen with your family or country circumstances. We will not be able to check that box and review your family situation for aid at any point. Okay. So how does it work? I'm just going to go through some basics of how we build an award and how we treat the cost of Duke in comparison to what we've asked you to pay. So we think it's pretty simple and straightforward. So this chart is very simple, but it's meant to be because this is how the process works for every single family. So first, we've got to determine what is the cost of attendance for the given academic year. Then we subtract what we determine your family's cost to be and fill in the gap. Whatever remains outside of what we've asked you to pay is what the aid offer will be inclusive of. So really quickly, just to see the numbers, cost of attendance, let's estimate it's $90,000, which isn't too far off. So if the total all-in cost of Duke is $90,000, we ask your family to pay $10,000. By default, that need-based aid offer is going to be $80,000 among all of the components. Okay, so how is the family contribution even calculated? How do we determine that demonstrated need? So it's a few pieces. The first piece being the parent contribution. And then the second piece is a student contribution. Now that piece is easy. It's fixed. Regardless of the student situation, we ask for the same amounts for every first year, second year, third and fourth year students. So it really hinges on that parent contribution piece. So we're going to look at your income and asset information that you have listed on the CSS profile, and that is also listed on the FAFSA. And we're going to do a calculation. We're going to take in all of the income information, and we're going to then reduce that income based on some very standard, typical household expenses. We're going to look to see, do you have multiple undergraduate students in college? We're going to look to see what do you pay in federal and state taxes. So the goal is everyone starts out with gross income figures, and then we go through the process of reducing that gross income to determine technically what's left that you could possibly contribute to Duke after we've protected your your family's income based on household size. You've got 5 people in your home. You've got 2 undergraduates in college, and you live in California. All of these factors make a difference and impact what we think your family can contribute. And that's automatic for every single family. All of those biographical, demographic information boxes matter for that reason. So when you're filling out these applications, we ask that you be as truthful and honest as possible so that we can accurately account for your family situation to the best of our ability. Now, a big asterisk here and a common question we get, retirement. So we do not consider the actual value of your retirement accounts. What we do look at is how much you may contribute to that account in a given year. So that information we do extract from your W-2s, but we're not looking at the gross value of that account with X Investment Bank. It's asked on the profile, so that you will see that question. Don't be surprised, but we're not actually using that figure in determining your contribution. Okay. So with that said, you do have to reapply for financial aid every year. So for some of you who may be well versed in what the application looks like, we are using 2-year-old tax data. So for anyone who may be applying for the 24-25 academic year, by default, the CSS profile and the FAFSA application are going to ask for your 2022 tax information. So it's always going to be 2 years behind as far as tax years, and that's okay. That's standard. I'll talk in a little bit about what we can do if that information isn't as relevant today as it may have once been, or it's not as consistent, things are changing. I'll go through that information. But by default, you do have to input the year being requested, and just know that it's 2 years old. Okay. So now we're going to have build and aid offer. So as I said, we add up all the things we can think of that encompass your cost of attendance. So that's things that Duke is billing you for: tuition and fees, housing, so your dorm, your meal plan, and then other things that we can't bill you for, but they're real expenses that you have by default logistically as someone attending college. So the big ones that people think of are books, supplies, travel expenses to and from your campus, and then kind of a catch-all category of personal expenses. Things that we know you're going to be spending money on, they're never going to show up from a billing perspective, but you're buying those ramen noodles. You're going to the doctor's office and may have a copay. You're going out with your newfound friends and your dorm mate, going to a movie, getting a bite to eat. So this is money that's just going to be spent on a weekly, day in, day out basis over the course of your academic year. So we do our best to include an estimate for how much you're going to spend on those things, even though they're not showing up on a bill. So you add all of those components together, and that is our total cost of attendance. So the first thing we do is subtract your family contribution. So we've done our calculation to say, regardless of what Duke may cost, based on the family's income and asset portfolio, here's what we're asking from you. That comes off the top. Then we fill in with loans and work study. So these amounts are always going to be in the aid offer. The work study is always going to be $2,200. So the one variable is the student loan. So we offer up to $5,000 in a student loan, but it can be less than that. So going back a little bit, if you recall, families who make $40,000 or less, we do not put a loan in your aid offer. I'm going to go ahead and give you the figure for who gets $5,000. So families with incomes of $85,000 or more, their loan is $5,000. So if you're between 40 and 85, your loan's going to be anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. At 85, it's by default $5K. So that's how we build your aid offer in terms of the loan. It's a sliding scale based on income, anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, depending on that total income that we capture each year. So what's left after this is what we all want to see, Duke grant. So once we've subtracted what we're asking of you to contribute, then what we're asking the student to earn through work or take out as a loan, we fill in the gap with Duke grant. Okay. So the timeline for all of this. If you are pursuing early decision, we ask that you complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile, and submit tax documents upon request by November 1st. If you're applying regular decision, we ask that you submit these items by February 1st. Now, one of the great things about Duke is these are very soft deadlines. So if you do not meet them, that is perfectly fine. You are not penalized if we get an application or document after these dates. These timelines just ensure that should you be admitted to Duke, the day that you get your admission decision, you'll be able to flip over and also see the financial aid offer. So that is something that allows you the most time to consider and make your decision, but also it gives each applicant pool their priority. So when we're in early decision, those students are our priority, and we want to get out as many packages as possible to those students so that they can review them. Same thing happens with regular decision. They get their priority time. So if we can get the information we've asked for as quickly as possible, you can have the conversations, meet your counselor, go through all of the scenarios, and ultimately make those decisions in late April, beginning of May. Okay, so here's just a few things we think make us special here at Duke. In no particular order, but first, our staff. So here at Duke, we are a small operation. We aren't huge. So we have a dedicated staff of counselors who are responsible for reviewing your documents, as well as counseling you throughout the years on various subjects and topics related to financial aid and sometimes other things. So when you are admitted to Duke and you receive that aid offer, it was completed by a person. And that person may be the very person who carries you through for 4 years. So our goal is that should you matriculate to Duke, you are partnered with a counselor who meets your specific needs, and they will be the person reviewing your profile, your FAFSA, and your tax documents every single year. So you're not repeating your story, you're not having to retell everything from the beginning. You have a dedicated person who will get to know your family and your situation to reevaluate your aid and help you to the best of their ability throughout your time here at Duke. We're also connected and tied in with the host of other university programs and services to help you and connect you as things arise. A lot of times we get coined as being a one-stop shop office, and we feel good about that. We appreciate that we have the ability and the access to tie students to other resources that they may or may not know exist or are applicable to them. So that's kind of a piece of what we do, and that's why we drove home the counseling aspect. So yes, it's providing the aid and crunching the numbers, but we're also here to counsel and guide students and parents accordingly throughout this journey. So appeals, again, all of the applications are using 2-year-old data. But what if that's not really relevant anymore? What if things have changed? That is where appeals come in. So we do accept appeals of various natures all year round. So if you think of your academic year as being 9 months, within those 9 months, 9 to 10 months, you have an opportunity to submit additional information and appeal your existing aid offer based on changes. Excuse me. So whether that change is income increases or, well, usually it's decreases, but income fluctuation that we can't capture upfront, but maybe we can capture later when taxes are available to pick up that reduction in income or a job loss. Or there are unusual medical expenses that we weren't aware of. Things like that we will take into account as soon as possible to see if we can reduce that parent contribution and therefore increase Duke funding. So again, we accept appeals all year long, but a little bit of advice, especially for applicants in the future. Our website, well, I'll go ahead and plug, our financial aid website has a host of information, but especially for applicants who may have special circumstances. I implore you to go ahead and proactively look at our special circumstances page to decide if the things you're currently thinking about or that are going on are relevant to what we will be able to look at in the coming admission cycle. So our website details, here are the things that we've already considered by default, upfront. And then here are the things we can consider with documentation and through notification. So that said, don't wait to get an initial aid offer from Duke and then submit appeal materials. If there is anything on that list that we can consider and you want to make sure it is, do it at the same time. You're submitting your profile, which allows an explanation box to write whatever you would like. Use it. If you're submitting documents, it doesn't have to just be a formal document. You can submit letters and other support documentation to verify and back up your family situation. Go ahead and do that as you're completing your initial application, be it the profile and the FAFSA, because our goal is to give you the best aid offer up front. So we don't need to break it into multiple pieces. If you have questions about it, what needs to be submitted, how, email our office, call our office as you're beginning that application process so that we can give you all of the information up front as to what you need to do and where you need to send it, so that when that counselor gets your file, they're able to take in everything absolutely possible that first time to give you the best aid offer come March 27th. 7 p.m. You're flipping that switch and seeing that Duke University acceptance letter. We want you to also be excited when you flip over to that financial aid offer. So let us help you and give us everything up front as soon as possible. If we can't consider it immediately, we will walk you through the process of when we'd be able to review it and what we would need. So we will be as upfront as we can about what we can consider today versus what we may have to wait for. But all of that information is so relevant, especially as a first year, making those decisions and ultimately a 4-year commitment. Okay, so a couple other things. On-campus housing, it doesn't matter. So a family cannot save money by choosing a lower costing housing option. So if you're receiving Duke grant funding, that funding will be increased to account for a single room. Do not force yourself into a double. If you truly want to be in a single, your aid will adjust to cover it. Health insurance. So all students are required to have adequate insurance to be here in Durham, but if you do not, that's fine. You will be enrolled in the Duke Student Medical Plan, and those receiving Duke funding will have an additional grant added to their aid offer to cover the costs of that additional charged item. And that happens every fall. Students who are enrolled out of necessity will see that on their fall bill, and they will also see a fall grant to cancel out that cost so that it's not on the parents. Summer support. So between your freshman and senior year here at Duke, you have 3 summers. Now, each of those summers is split in half. So you have 6 opportunities to study abroad or to do summer session here in Durham or the Marine Lab or maybe one of the domestic study away programs like New York or California, any and all of those opportunities. So for those receiving grant aid during the academic year, we will automatically review whether or not you can receive additional aid to participate in a Duke summer program. So families don't have to do anything up front. We see that registration and we automatically determine if you can receive grant aid for up to 2 of those 6 sessions between your freshman and senior year. Another benefit to that being, if we do provide aid for that session, then we don't think you should have to pay your entire student contribution the next academic year because you were in school. So if you're in school, we don't expect you to necessarily have worked the full summer. So we will reduce your student contribution accordingly, whenever you participate in specific Duke programs that we can consider. Course fees. So in addition to tuition fees, sometimes you guys are enrolled in courses that require an extra fee, whether it's a music fee or a course trip fee. That's fine. That does not impact your responsibility to do. Those receiving grant funding who also have these additional course fees will receive additional grant aid to cover the extra fee. So as pictured, this is actually a course in which students had to go to Hawaii for, I think, a week. And that fee was $1,000 in addition to the tuition for that semester. So for all of our aided students, they got an additional $1,000 to participate. Okay, so some other resources that we offer here and I'm really proud of, our personal finance office in conjunction with student loans. They offer a host of financial counseling programs, financial fitness sessions. They run the loan, so the student loan entrance exit counseling, so that students who may be pursuing financing and may accept that loan in the aid offer, they can be well aware and versed on what they're taking on. What does student loan interest look like and mean for you? When is it to be paid back? What does it look like over the course of a 10, 15, 20-year plan? So if that's something you are interested in as students or your parents are, it is an office that you can go to for those resources specific to financing and just financial literacy. So that's something we really like to promote for all of our students to at some point take some time and invest in financial literacy that will carry them through well beyond Duke. So the student loan office is always available to help with those who are pursuing financing. So they are our partners in crime. We award the loans and they disperse them, as we like to say. So if a parent opts into financing to help pay their portion, the student loan office is the one behind the scenes facilitating and helping make sure those funds get to Duke. So if you ever have questions about what's happening with your loans or your options for loans, our office is available, but so is the student loan office. So a few other benefits. So when it comes to paying your contribution as parents and students, we do offer a payment plan. So you can opt for as few as 6 and as many as 10 monthly payments for the academic year. So you would start to make those payments in July and they take you through April. There's no interest to use these plans. There is just a one-time enrollment fee. So that's something that we really promote for our families. You do not need to pay a lump sum if that's something you're not able to do or want to do, or you can do all of the above. You can pay a little up front, spread the rest across the payment plan, customize it to whatever meets and suits your family's needs. So in addition to participating in summer school and summer study away, there are a few other programs that Duke hosts over the summer that qualify for the student contribution to be reduced. So the student gets more aid in the following academic year as recognition that they completed a summer program. And then in regards to work study, that is a program that a lot of our students, even if they don't get Duke grant funding, they still want to use work study, and they can. Anyone can have work study regardless of if they have grant funding. So being able to utilize it and work in a lab to pursue their academic interests, or to just simply work in the garden because it's something they would love to do, make a little extra money doing it, they can do so. So we do not limit it to students with grant funding. Anyone can have work study as long as they are enrolled for that semester. Okay. So that was it for me. Let me end. Okay. So I know that was a lot of information very quickly, but if we do have some questions, I will take as many as I can in our remaining time.
Okay, Nicole, thank you for that presentation. I've got a couple here and I'll just read them out, okay?
All right, hit me.
All right, I'll hit you. Given that the FAFSA will not open until later than usual, will financial aid decisions be available with the early decision results in December?
That was first. Yes. So the estimated availability for FAFSA is what, December? We have not discussed and decided on how that will affect the early decision population. The good thing is we aren't driven by FAFSA. We never have been. That FAFSA calculation never meant anything to do. We rely on CSS profile and your actual tax documents, if requested, to determine a family's contribution. So the fact that FAFSA won't be available doesn't affect the aid offer. It will affect what you can do when, because both applications will ultimately be needed, but our ability to give you an early decision estimate is not limited to FAFSA. So knowing that, any student who's considering early decision, you don't need to worry. We will modify and do what we need to in accordance with when that application is available. But all of our students will still be on the same timeline they've always been. That aid offer will be available the night that you're accepted, and you'll be able to see that information. And we will work backwards to factor in your federal aid eligibility. But the way we do early decision, it always says estimate. We never list specifically what your student loans are going to be or what your work study is going to be. The amounts are fixed, but as far as the type, that's all we need FAFSA for. So the timeline at this point has not changed. The aid offers will still be available based on the profile and your tax documents. And we will address FAFSA as soon as we can and give those students the update again on the normal timeline, which was always May. So early decision students receive a second revised aid offer in May with the same family contribution, just updated to factor in FAFSA elements if necessary.
Great. Thank you very much for explaining that. Now here's one, well, maybe the admissions office may have to come in on, but here it is. In the scenario where a student is released from the early decision process because the family cannot actually afford what Duke determines it can afford, has the student already been required to withdraw his or her applications to other schools?
I saw that question in the chat, and unfortunately, I don't have a specific answer for that question, and I don't want to give the wrong answer. So what I would suggest would be following up with the admissions office, and I'm sure one of my colleagues via email or phone would be able to answer that question. And I'll go ahead and put the admissions contact in the chat.
Perfect, thank you. This would be another one for you. What is the average SAT or ACT score for students that receive a merit scholarship?
That's a great question, and there's not an answer to that question, especially since we have been test optional for the past couple of years now. So some students submit scores, some students don't. So there's not really an average, and the number of students that are awarded merit-based scholarships are so small. So there's not an effective statistic for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Can you still check the box that you need financial aid if your family's income is greater than the income on our slides that you presented, Nicole?
Yes. So we never discourage a family from applying, especially that first year, because that kind of sets the bar. If you don't qualify, then by no means do you need to continue completing all the steps every year. But that first year, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and complete the full process just for that reassurance that you either do or don't qualify for any type of grant funding, is what we will always suggest for any family.
Okay, perfect. Now, how does the 529 affect aid?
That's an asset. So all savings plans you will list. The important thing to remember there is not to double count. So there is the CSS profile is more in depth and asks a lot of questions, but you only need to report it once. So you choose. There's a question where it lists assets and siblings' name. there's a question in regards to your overall investment value, pick. Just don't double count it and list it twice. Pick one of the asset categories to enter that number, and it will be calculated with all of your other assets. So we expect that obviously it's a 529, you're going to use it. So as part of that renewal application process, each subsequent year, by default, that number is going to go down and will be reflected in future aid years. So any of your contribution that may be coming from assets would therefore be affected because you're actually using those funds. But that stresses, and that's why the renewal process is important, as long as you don't double count where you put those funds.
Okay, so no double count of those, right? All right, for divorce situations, do we include the assets of the household the student lives in or both homes?
Okay, that's a great question. So for our divorced families, there are separate applications for each parent. So you're going to designate a parent 1 and a parent 2, and you're going to fill out your separate respective CSS profiles. So the information for both parents will be picked up, but it's not shared. So the students can't see it on the applications, and neither parent can see it on the other parent's application. So that's part of College Board's very smooth process of one parent fill it out. So parent 1, custodial parent, however you want to designate and name yourself. Typically parent 1 is the same parent who did FAFSA, and it just makes sense that way, but it doesn't have to be. So whoever does the profile first, they will indicate who parent 2 is and provide the contact information for that parent. College Board will send parent 2 a notice to say, hey, we have a student applying to a school that requires your information. Please complete this application. So everything will be kept separate, but you will report both household income and asset information, and Duke will receive it all, and we'll keep it nice and tight and separate and do a review for both parents and then give the student one number. So we don't tell you how much came from which parent, but we will list one total parent contribution. How families may divvy that up or assign those is completely up to the family, but we will show one parent contribution based on the individual households together.
Okay, perfect. And this is sort of along those same lines. How is the value of joint assets of one parent and a step parent considered in the net price calculator?
It's not. So the calculator is not designed to accurately reflect or compute for those situations. So we do not advise it be used. Unfortunately, for those families, it's just not going to be nearly as accurate because that requires manual treatment that only we as counselors can do once we receive your application data. Excuse me. But in general, we're looking to isolate the biological parent 1 and 2 of the applicant. So when there are step parents on either side, we do remove their information, but we have to have it all to know what to remove. So you're still supplying, if you file jointly, you're still supplying that joint tax return. We still need all W-2s, business tax forms, whatever may be applicable for that household. And our office will go through the process of separating out the information for the parent that's not related to our student.
Okay. This is a little different. The slides in chat are not matching for NCSC information. Does the 150K limit for those states include assets like homes, savings, other property, or not?
So assets are the third eligibility criteria for North and South Carolina residents. We do consider and look at assets in addition to the income being within the 150 or less. So as far as what's considered, it's what's on the CSS profile. So for all of our students, we use the same asset categories. So you're going to report your cash savings checking, your general investments, excluding retirement, assets held by siblings, your home value versus debt, any other real estate holdings, any business value debt. Those are all of the main categories that we're looking at when reviewing a family's asset portfolio.
Okay.
So when we do look at that, it will be captured. So a family who may qualify based on income may not qualify based on assets. So you have to meet all three: residency in one of the Carolinas, the income threshold, and an asset threshold.
Thank you, Nicole, for clarifying that. What if your parents are not willing to pay for your tuition, even though their household income is relatively high?
Okay, so those situations, we kind of default to our guiding principle, which is that willingness is not a factor in a student's financial aid. So it's based on ability, not willingness to contribute. So we do have to have those parent tax forms if requested. We do have to have them on both the FAFSA and the CSS profile to proceed with a review. If there are extenuating circumstances that warrant not collecting that information, we will make that determination. So we do have an independent student petition on our website that a student can fill out, providing context for their situation, in addition to any support documentation, affidavits from a counselor, a therapist, others that aren't in a familial or friend category. There needs to be someone in a professional capacity, as we like to say, who can attest to the situation. We will review that information and make a determination as to whether you could be considered independent. And if that is the case, then you're only required to complete a FAFSA. And if you do have your own tax forms, then you would supply that. But that's reserved for very extreme extenuating circumstances to not request any parent data.
Okay. Does Duke account for twins applying in the financial aid package?
Oh, twins, yes, twins, triplets. I don't know if we've had any quads recently, but a lot of people have noted that with the 24-25 FAFSA, one of the biggest changes is that they are no longer considering multiple students in college when calculating the student aid index. No more EFC. And that's concerning for a lot of families. So good news. Again, we were never relying on FAFSA. We will continue to not rely on FAFSA. Considering multiple undergraduates in college is something that is not going away from our calculation. So we do a very standard reduction for multiple undergraduate siblings. So the criteria is they have to be full-time enrolled at in an undergraduate program pursuing their first bachelor's. So that's pretty much the baseline. It doesn't matter the cost of that institution as long as it's full-time 4-year undergraduate bachelor's degree. If there are 2 in college, we automatically reduce your Duke contribution by 40% and continue reducing on a sliding scale if there's 3, 4, 5 or more enrolled at the same time.
Okay.
But that's always been a piece of our calculation. It's done automatically. So when you fill out your CSS profile, when you list 2 in college, that award will be based on 2 in college, and we will ask for verification the fall semester that they enroll.
Okay. My parents keep their retirement in real estate. Will that against us when receiving aid?
Okay, so that is a common thing we've come across. We are not able to protect retirement that is in any form other than a standard retirement account. So when you're listing it as other real estate, or if it's currently a rental property, it will be picked up and it will be factored into the contribution. We are not able to take it out or ignore it. Even if for your family's purposes, that's how they designated those holdings and those properties, we can't treat it the same as we do a standard 401k, 401b, whatever the case may be.
Okay. If I'm interested in applying ED, but cannot afford the predicted tuition using the net price calculator, Can a financial advisor work with me to make the price more reasonable for my family before I submit an ED application? I'm giving you all the good ones now. You see that?
I see, Jackie. So there isn't anything we can do between the time of you doing the calculator yourself and right before the admission decisions go live. We are tight-lipped. We can't reveal anything. We can't help you navigate the calculator or offer any additional sources of funding, nothing like that. Nothing can happen, no conversation can happen until your admission decision is released. You see the initial aid offer and we go from there. But in doing that, it ensures that one, all students who complete the applications actually get an aid offer. We can't start helping you navigate it when there are students who don't have one yet. But timeline wise, as soon as it drops, we can start communicating about it, talking about it, and helping you make that decision.
Okay. If the kids have not been in contact with a non-custodial parent for 7+ years, what documents are needed for the CSS non-custodial waiver?
That's a good one. Are you sure I'm impressed you guys are asking great questions. So petition, which is also on our website, College Board also has a version. So I'm going to start there. If you submit the College Board version, perfectly fine. Just let our office know that you've done that so that we can make sure we go retrieve it. Or you can opt to submit ours, which is actually a survey online. So it comes through our email automatically and we know it's there. So when it comes to additional support documentation, again, typically that comes from a high school counselor or a therapist. If there's anyone else, I mean, in extreme cases, we do see like social workers, maybe police, documentation, but if it's not necessarily that kind of situation, it's really open and broad. As ending high school students, we most often get letters from counselors, high school counselors, who they don't need to know your entire situation. They don't need to know specific details, but we're just looking to establish that for as long as these people have known you, and the longer they've known you, the better, that they have not interacted with or seen said parent. So it's just backing you up, validating what you're saying, but they don't need to know details and they don't need to go in depth in their letter. So typically we just receive letters or email statements of them kind of summarizing, like, I've known the student since X time, or I work with them in this program, and during this time I have never interacted with, spoke with, seen parent too. Something like that.
All right. Now this is a good one too. Is there a limit to how many North Carolina, South Carolina students can receive the tuition-free grant if household income is less than 60? I mean, what's our cutoff? How many are we taking?
We made a cutoff. No, we would never do that. It is so as the admission decisions are rolling in and we are processing the aid offers, anyone and everyone that meets the 3 criteria, location-wise, income-wise, asset-wise, will be given the correct funding to meet the initiative of either tuition fee free if you're 150 and below, and then if you're below 65, to ensure tuition, fees, housing, dining, and a refund.
Okay. I just had a question and it was a good one, but I can't find it. But I think I'm gonna do it from memory. So
Okay.
let's say the profile says that your parents have to pay X number of dollars, but the parent and the student have come to an agreement where they are gonna, you pay this much and I pay that much. Does Duke get in the middle of that?
We do not. See that a lot, more so in divorce agreements, but we do not get in the middle of deciding who pays what. And again, we just send you the one total family contribution. Technically, we've asked the student to pay $2,600. Ultimately, who covers that isn't for us to decide. But if a family has an agreement like that, that's definitely something to consider when making your decision. If that amount is something they're going to be responsible for yearly, then that may impact whether or not Duke is the school for you. but we do not get into the middle of families deciding who pays what. We do not divulge what amount came from what parent if we're talking about divorced families. We don't share, we like to say, we don't share your tax information with your student, but conversely, we don't necessarily share the aid offer with your student or with you as parents unless you've got prior knowledge, so that everyone's protected and everyone's information is protected unless we're all in a room together discussing things.
Perfect. Okay.
We have time for one more.
Okay, now this is a good one. If a student has significant inherited assets from a deceased parent, is the fixed student contribution still the same?
It will not be. That is a great question. So even though the CSS profile is mainly picking up parent data, you do still fill in the exact same questions for students. So that'll be the first section, is the student income asset information. So if we do see that, which isn't normally the case, but it does happen, we do see it where students do have those inheritances, trusts, investments, so forth and so on. It will be captured and we will allow it to compute for a student above 2,600 if it looks appropriate based on what you self-reported you have available.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. Those are great questions.
Thank you.
Of course, there are many that we could not get to this evening, but if you are dying to know those answers or get some info now, you can contact our office at finaid, FINAID @duke.edu to have those addressed as you begin the process of figuring out if Duke's a school for you and you would like to apply. I highly encourage you to visit our website. We have a chat box, so you can kind of type in like key search words and it'll take you to all the pages where that information may be found so that you can start diving through and reading through everything. But you guys have been an attentive audience, so thank you so much for attending this evening. And we look forward to potentially seeing you in the future.